The last train to Gowanus. It starts with a whisper, a fleeting story passed between late-night barflies and graffiti artists in Brooklyn. They talk about the Gowanus Tunnel, how it hums at night with the sound of something alive. Beneath their jokes and bravado, though, there is unspoken fear. Everyone knows someone who disappeared there. That's how Mia first heard the tale. A bartender at a dive near the Gowanus Canal, she dismissed the stories as typical urban legends. Drunken ramblings about the things seen in the shadowed underbelly of the subway, probably rats or squatters. Nothing real. At least, that's what she told herself. But her skepticism wavered when her friend Jesse's obsession. Jesse was a photographer, obsessed with capturing New York's hidden corners. Forgotten warehouses, rambling subway stations, tunnels where no trains run anymore. He called it urban spelunking, but Mia called it reckless. She'd warned him his habit of trespassing in abandoned places would get him in trouble. When Jesse vanished, she thought it was just one of his disappearing acts, of chasing some forgotten landmark without telling anyone. Then his camera showed up. A wiry man with hollow cheeks slid the stretch-up device across the bar one evening. He didn't say much, just muttered, "He wasn't looking in the wrong places," before disappearing into the night. Mia couldn't shake the man's world. When she flipped through the camera later, her unease deepened. First few photos were Jesse's usual fare. Few shots of decayed tunnels, broken tracks, graffiti-stricken walls. But then the images shifted. The later photos showed the Gowanus Tunnel, a place Jesse had been warned never to enter. First, the shots seemed ordinary. If haunted long corridors lit by faint, flickering lights, then things became strange. Dark shapes blurred in the corners of the flames, like something skittering just out of view. The graffiti turned jagged and unfamiliar symbols that seemed to breathe under her gaze. The final photo stopped her cold, a crimson glow spilling from a crack in the wall, silhouetting a figure with arm impossibly long, face obscured by shadow. Camera battery died in her hands. Mia stared at it for a long time, trying to convince herself it was some trick of the light, but the unease in her chest wouldn't let her rest. The descent. The next evening, Mia found herself standing at the Gowanus subway station. The platform was nearly empty, save for a lone worker scrubbing graffiti from a pillar. The smell of mildew and something metallic filled the air, and the fluorescent light flickered faintly above. She hesitated, glancing at the stairs that led to the service tunnels. It felt like the ground itself was waiting, holding its breath. Mia swallowed her fear and descended. The deeper she went, the less connected she felt to the world above. The hum of distant trains faded, replaced by rhythmic thudding like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The air grew thick, hot and suffocating. She followed the path from Jesse's photos. The graffiti became more twisted, the symbols carved deep into the walls. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, and the rhythmic thudding grew louder, vibrating through her chest. Then she found it, the crack in the wall. Crimson light spilled from the jagged edges, pulsating like something alive. Mia crawled through the opening and emerged into a cavernous space that didn't belong beneath Brooklyn. The walls were smooth, black and glistening like wet obsidian. Above her, a web of pipes and veins pulsated with the same crimson glow, filling the space with an oppressive heat. Below, a thick inky liquid mirrored the ceiling, dripping with unseen movement. In the center of the chamber stood a figure, the conductor. It was humanoid but wrong. Its limbs were too long, its frame unnaturally angular. A crown of metal spikes floated above its head, and its face was hidden behind a mask of polished bone. In its hands it held a heavy iron staff that hummed with low electric energy. The figure turned toward her, tilting its head as though surprised.
"You shouldn't be here."
It said, its voice a low growl that rattled her teeth. Mia staggered back, but her heart pounded. "What did you do to Jessie?" she demanded, her voice shaking. The conductor didn't answer. It raised a hand and gestured toward the pool. As Mia's eyes adjusted, she realized the liquid wasn't just reflecting the ceiling. It was filled with faces. Hundreds of them floated beneath the surface, their mouths open in silent screams, their features twisted and distorted as though being pulled apart. Spotted Jesse almost immediately. His face was frozen in an expression of terror, his eyes wide and unseeing. "Why?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The conductor's head tilted again.
"They sustain the city like blood and bones of the forgotten feet. It's
The inky liquid began to rise, thick tendrils reaching towards her. Mia's panic surged. She turned and ran, slipping and scrambling back toward the crack in the wall. The conductor's voice echoed behind her.
You were chosen the moment you entered."
She threw herself through the opening, ignoring the jagged edges that tore at her arms and legs. The writhing thudding followed her, louder now, accompanied by the sound of something massive moving in the darkness. Finally she reached the subway station, bursting onto the platform. She collapsed onto the cold concrete, gasping for air. Commuters stared at her bloodied, trembling form, but no one said a word. The return. For days, Mia avoided the subway, walking miles for work and back. The nightmares never stopped. She dreamed of the conductor, its mask glinting in the crimson light, and the faces in the pool, their silent screams echoing in her ears. But she told herself it was over. She had escaped. One night, after an exhausting shift at the bar, she had no choice but to take the subway. The buses weren't running, and the streets were too empty to walk safely. The platform was deserted when she arrived. A train rumbled into the station, its headlights cutting through the gloom. The doors slid open, revealing an empty car. Mia hesitated, her stomach was twisting. But it was late and there was no other way home. She stepped inside. The train doors closed with a hiss and it began to move. At first, everything seemed normal. The fluorescent light buzzed soft, the car swaying gently as it sped through the tunnels. Then the lights began to flicker. The lightning thudding from the Gowanus Tunnel filled the air, faint at first but growing louder with each passing second. Shadows stretched and twisted across the walls, forming shapes that didn't belong. Mia's breath hitched. She turned and saw him. The conductor stood at the far end of the car, his bone mask glinting in the flickering light. The train plunged into darkness. And then his voice, low and final.
Welcome to the Chindia. You will give us running.
The end. The next morning, the subway ran as usual. Commuters packed into crowded trains, oblivious to the secrets lurking beneath their feet. Somewhere deep in the city, in the place where the forgotten and devoured, a new face joined the pool. The train kept running.